Today's menu is going to include a dish called pão de queijo. It's actually a Brazilian cheese bread, and I'm sorry to my Brazilian friends if I butchered the words. I don't speak Portuguese, as you guys know, so I have a problem pronouncing some of the words, but the idea is it's a Brazilian cheese bread that I'm making. And what this includes is just basically a couple of ingredients. The main ingredient is tapioca, or cassava, or manioc, or there's a couple other words for it, but it's a root vegetable that you use, and that root vegetable can then be broken down and ground just like flour. So this is a gluten-free dish, but it has a slightly different texture than flour. When you eat it, it's a little bit more, I don't know, it's just different. It's maybe a little more gummy when you make it, and then when you actually have the product, the end product, it's a little softer than most gluten types of flour that you would use. So it's a really interesting dish. Now, you'll see a variation on this in various Latin American cultures. They use the cassava with a lot of different things. You'll have variations where it has cheese, or it has some spice, or it has garlic, or it has something else, and you'll see it pop up on different menus. Now, you'll also see a variation on it pop up on some Asian dishes, some Asian menus as well, because the cassava, the manioc, is something that is used universally. And you can make something with cheese. Sometimes they use cheese, sometimes they use other things. But you'll see something like it that pops up different places because it's a very simple dish. Now, it takes a few minutes to make, no question about it. It probably takes 40 minutes in total to make, so it's a while. But it's well worth it because you come up with this cheesy bread that's just remarkable. It's a really good dish. Actually, it's very simple. It just takes a little effort to put it together. So I hope you enjoy this. This is one of our favorite dishes. I like to make it every once in a while, and it just comes out so good, and it's just such a nice dish to have. I really enjoy making it. Like I said, it's a little messy and a little long, but that's okay. It's well worth your effort. This recipe starts by boiling some milk along with some coconut oil and a little bit of salt over the stove. What I want to do is I want to start it off and get it simmering so that it just starts to come to a boil. And then, in the meantime, while that's boiling, I'm going to put 2 cups of tapioca starch into my stand mixer. And the reason I'm going to put it in the stand mixer is because I really want to mix it up well when I start to incorporate the eggs into it, and it's much easier in the stand mixer. So I'll go ahead and put the 2 cups in the bowl for it, and I'll wait for the milk to come to a boil. Now, once the milk comes to a boil, I can go ahead and take it off and pour it right into my mix. So I'll just take the milk off. You can see it's just starting to simmer up. You can see some bubbles in there. It's about ready to come off. So I'll go ahead and lift it off and just pour it right over my tapioca. All right, so let's go ahead and just take that out, and we'll just pour it right on. Now the fun part is getting this all incorporated. What you want to do is you want to get it in there completely and then mix up the tapioca so that there's nothing left. There's no little starchy granules left over. So you just want to mix it. It'll take a minute or two to just get it all incorporated, and it'll look like it's not going to, but it will. And then eventually you're going to get it all incorporated enough where you've got it so that it's like a little ball, almost a ball of dough if you think about it that way. And it just takes a minute or two. Once it's done, you'll see it and you'll go, okay, this is about the right texture you want. So it starts to look like this, a little gummy, a little bit like a dough ball in some ways, but it's just the tapioca and the milk and coconut oil. So we'll just keep mixing for another minute or so here, and we'll get it all incorporated. You can see the steam coming off. It's nice and hot at this point. What we're waiting for is this to cool down. We need this to be nice and cool before we continue our process. So it just needs to be incorporated and left together. Then when it's ready, we'll go ahead and we'll mix it together. In the meantime, I want to get some cheese together. I have some queso blanco I had left over, and I'm going to go ahead and use some of that. I'm just going to go ahead and grate it up. You could use a hand grater. You could use pre-grated cheese. I like to use the food processor. It's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. What you want is something that's got a little bit of texture to it and a little salt. It could be any kind of cheese you like. Some people like Parmesan in it. And Parmesan, I agree, adds a nice flavor to the whole thing, but it's really your choice. Once it's done, what I like to do is put it out on some sort of a mat. It makes it easier to incorporate it into the mix. So you'll see that in a minute, how easy it is to just put in there. If I leave it in the bowl, I have to kind of scoop it in, and it's kind of hard to get in. So I just go ahead and use one of these Silpat mats. I'm going to bake on it anyway. So I just go ahead and put the cheese on there first, and then I'll put that into my mix in just a minute. So once that's all together, and I've got my cheese out and waiting, I can go ahead and check on my batter, my tapioca, and see how it's doing. So I'm just going to go over to it and see how it is. If it's cool to the touch, it's ready to use. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll check on my tapioca here, and I'll put my finger in, and it is cool to the touch. So I am ready to start using it. So I'll bring it over to my stand mixer now, and then I'll go ahead and attach my beater to it, and then I can go ahead and get started with the rest of this. Now the only other ingredients I'm going to need are the eggs and cheese. That's it. It's going to be 2 eggs and whatever, about a cup of cheese that I've grated up. And that's all I'm going to put in here. That's the entirety of the dish. It's amazing how simple this is. So once I get the attachment put on it, I can go ahead and start just beating it up. I can just go through and start beating it. Even though I've already started to beat it a little bit, now I can go ahead and finish it off by just getting it all mixed up and incorporated. So I'll go ahead and bring the mixer up and we'll start doing the beating. Now as it's running, I'll go ahead and I'll add an egg. Now you want to add the eggs one at a time. You want them to fully incorporate into the mix before you add the next egg. It can be a little messy otherwise. So you just start to get it going with the 1 egg. And once that's fully incorporated, it'll take maybe 2 or 3 minutes to incorporate completely. It will look like it's not going to incorporate, but it will. And then once that's incorporated completely, then you can go ahead and add your 2nd egg. So we're just letting it mix here for a minute. I've kind of shortened the time a little bit because it's just lengthy while you're sitting there waiting for it to beat. But now I'm ready to add my 2nd egg. So I go ahead and just crack my 2nd egg into it and do the same thing. Just let it run for another minute or 2, 3 minutes if it takes that, to fully incorporate all of the egg in there. You get a batter that starts to look like this, and it really looks like a batter now. Now I'm ready to put my cheese in. Because I put it on the sill pad, it's really easy to just dump in there. I want to do it in maybe 2 batches, a half a cup at a time, where I'm putting cheese into my mix. That'll mix it up completely and make it really nice and give it a nice incorporation to the whole thing. You don't want cheese all the way on one side and not in the other. You want to make sure it's fully incorporated, so I just leave it running and go ahead and get my cheese in there. Now when it's done, it'll look something like this. You have the sticky, doughy batter. I'm going to take it off so you can see what it looks like. When I pull the handle off, you can see just how this looks. It's pretty cool because it's this sticky mass that you've got here. So you can see how it kind of droops off. That's what you want. You want a texture very much like that. It's sticky enough where it sticks together, but it's also kind of moves around a little bit. Now, how you prepare them. I've heard different reports on this. I know some people like to put them in their hand and roll them like a ball and then put it out on the mat. It gets really sticky. You need to keep your hands wet to do that. Personally, I prefer to just do it with an ice cream scoop. This is a larger ice cream scoop, and I'm just going to scoop out 12 pieces onto this particular mat, and I'll have a total of about 24 when I'm done, but I'll do 12 here on this mat, and I just need to use the ice cream scoop to just scoop in there and scoop it out. Now, if you choose to do a different method, totally up to you, but what you're going to get are these little balls that have cheese inside them and have this nice flaky texture. So it's going to be really nice either way. I just try to make it easier on myself. I know some of my Brazilian friends tell me I do it wrong because you really have to roll it into a ball. I don't see it that way, and if you add a little more of your tapioca to it, you'll get a little bit tighter consistency and you won't have it be as sticky in your hands. It's a little easier to mix out, but it's really up to you how you choose to do it. Now, if you wanted to, you could also add garlic. Some people like to have a little spice in here, maybe a little jalapeno too, little pieces of it. I don't like it that way. I like it just with the salt and cheese. That's it. If it's a salty cheese, it's enough for me and I can work with it. And it comes out with this really nice flaky texture, and it's just nice to serve with. I like it with coffee in the morning, but you could certainly have it another time of day, maybe with some other drink. It's just something that's a nice little refreshing treat in a way. It's not very heavy, it's not very high in calories, and it's gluten-free, so it's actually a nice choice. So once I've got them all together, and you can see a couple of them kind of mashed out a little bit, so I'm going to kind of push them together just a little bit more with my hands, I can get them in the oven. So we'll go ahead and put them in an oven, and we'll cook them I'll set the timer for 20 minutes, but I want to keep an eye on it, because I really think it's only going to take about 15 minutes to get it done. And while that's cooking, I'll go ahead and get the second batch ready to go in, so I can just make both batches one after another. So it's really pretty simple and straightforward. This isn't a hard dish to make. It's just, like I said, a little messy because the tapioca flour, trust me, when you start pouring it out, it gets everywhere. It just kind of goes up in these little particles and then they collapse everywhere all over the place, and you'll find tapioca flour for a couple of days after you make it. So it's one of those things you want to be aware of. And of course, you're dealing with the eggs and you're dealing with this sticky substance when you're done, and it takes a little while to clean. Trust me when I say that the ice cream scoop, it took me like another 5 or 6 minutes to clean just to put in the sink and wash it off, just because of the nature of it. And of course, the pot itself, the bowl for my stand mixer is also that way. Very sticky on the inside. I have to let it soak for a little while, and then I just scrub it out real quick, and I can get it clean. But it takes a little effort to clean up. And of course, if you get it anywhere else in the house, it's going to be all over the place. So you just need to be careful with it. It's just a little messy, and you'll get a technique for it once you get it going if you decide to make this. All right. I have my second dozen basically ready. What I'm doing now is just scraping out anything that's left in the bowl. Because of the way it sticks to the sides of the bowl, I have to kind of scrape it out a little bit, and I just add it back into any of the ones that look a little smaller to me. So I'll go ahead and get those in the oven. The first batch is now done. It's been about 15 minutes, and I'm going to take them out, and they look really nice. They're sort of golden brown, just starting to get nice on the top, and they're perfect. This is exactly what you want, something like this. So go ahead and take these out, and I'm going to show you what one looks like. I've pushed them together just so you can see how they look, but here's what they look like. I'll open it up, and you can see it's cheesy and gooey and kind of nice inside. It's very hot, but you can see kind of how it comes together. It really has a nice texture to it. The outside is just flaky, and the inside is nice and chewy and gooey, and it's really good this way. And it's hard to not eat them and just pop them all in your mouth. I think when I made this batch, I think I probably ate 4 of them just that first sitting. But they're really good. You can see how they look inside, just that nice sort of texture inside. It's just beautiful. Hope you enjoy.